Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Tonight, we are discussing something very important. This is our guest. He's joining us from all the way in Philippines. He's Dr. Isaac Podah. Dr. Podah, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much for the invite on your platform.
Thank you so much. We're going to be discussing mainly his book. He has written 2 books, and the one that caught our attention is the one that have to do with Save the State. I think you have heard before, Saving the State. So this book is called Save the State Through Proposition 6. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. Dr. Podah he has a doctorate in public administration, and so he has written 2 books that talk about Liberia. Tonight we're going to be discussing his second book, which is Save the State Through Proposition 6, and he's going to explain what all that means. So please invite a friend, grab some cold drinks, and let's discuss saving the state, or better ways to save the state. That's how we like to put it here, because we've heard about saving the state. Tonight we're going to be discussing with Dr. Isaac Podah other ways, is his proposal, his recommendations through which the state can be saved. Again, we want to say welcome to Focus on Liberia. Dr. Podah is joining us from the Philippines, where he's been studying. He just got his doctorate degree, and he's going to go back to Liberia very soon. By way of introduction, Dr. Podah is a fellow Liberian, of course, who recently earned his doctorate in public administration and is on his way back in less than a week, maybe. You will also be interested in knowing that he's got his bachelor's and his master's all in public administration. So in Liberia, we'll say he really is public administration. And we're going to go through and see what that is all about. His doctoral dissertation was on decentralization as an instrument for sustainable peace and inclusive development in Liberia. Basically, what he was looking at is he created a model that can enhance, in his word, the decentralization program in Liberia to help achieve some of the pro-poor agenda and some of the sustainable development goals. Dr. Podah, this is a few things I read about you. Anything else you want to say to our audience about yourself that I left out that you want to mention?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's true. What you have read about me is true. What you did mention is that I have been a lecturer at the Adventist Universities of West Africa. I'm from Lofa County, Zozo. There's I was born. I was born in Zozo, Lofa County, and grew up in Zozo, Lofa County. So, and I taught at the Adventist Universities of West Africa public administration for 5 years before coming to do my doctorate program.
And all that is in public administration. So I'm excited, a young man with a doctorate degree. It's exciting. So, and that's in public administration. So you study a lot of public administration, all the way to the doctorate level. Normally people will study something else and then get doctorate in something else. But I like when people study from A to Z, all one area. So I'm just curious, what sparked your interest in public administration, and how can that scale benefit our country? When I was going to school here, they say, what are you doing there? You were using Liberia. So what sparked your interest in public administration, and how can the skills and knowledge acquired from public administration help Liberia?
Yeah, when I was coming out, I used to see people like you have the superintendent, the commissioner, and I used to see my father. He was a clerk. It's also district there for the commissioner. So all those are administrative issues. I used to admire how he dressed, how he goes in his office. He was a clerk, as he typed, he has his grip. And I used to go to his office too, and see the commissioner. So these are public issues. So I decided to get more interest in public administration. Yeah.
Wow. So somebody who did public administration, like to your level, where can they work in Liberia? What can they do?
Well, if you do public administration is a broad field. You can work anywhere. You can work in a hospital. You can work in a church. You can work in the army. You can work anywhere because it's an administration. Administration is about carrying out policy, implementations of policy, service delivery. So you work anywhere.
Good.
You can work in the private sector and you work in the public sector.
Oh, okay. I thought because they say public administration, so you can do administration in a private area.
No, you can. Obviously, you can.
All right. I also mentioned during your introduction about your dissertation. Yeah. I take interest in that because we've been talking about decentralization. Let me read that again. Your dissertation said you created a model that can enhance the decentralization program in Liberia, which will help achieve some of the pro-poor agendas and some of the sustainable development goals. So let's talk about the decentralization. What model you created and how does that help?
All right. Before coming to the model, you made mention about, let me just give you, apart from public and where people work, and we need to know what is public administration, right? Yeah. Is it okay that we go into that or we should just go into the model?
Just a little bit. Go into that a little bit.
Yeah, first of all, when it comes to public administration, like I said earlier, that is a broad field. The meanings of public administration, there seems not to exist amongst scholars a consensus on a single and simple definitions of public administration. So you will note that scholars in the disciplines of public administration come out with a working definition. So for this platform, I created a working definitions that can fit in Liberia. For instance, public administration as an academic discipline contains both the elements of science and art in the making and implementations of public policy. It takes into account those social, political, and economic factors and those who occupy and run the bureaucracy. That is public administration. So if you look at this meaning of public administration, it suits Liberia and other democratic nations. Now, this definition brings in the trinitative doctrines of government, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislative. And when you talk about government, that's public administration, because government is an institution that is charged with the responsibility to administer the affairs of the people. So what are the affairs of the people? You have the social affair, the political affair, the marital affair, lands and everything. So public administration is broad. And that's what Liberians need to know.
So it seems to me that our ministers, legislators, president, vice president, it would be good for them to study public administration, or is that something you're saying?
Of course, it is good for them to study public administration to know, because there are values. There are core values in public administration. There are do's and don'ts in public administration. So our problem is when you have people who don't have background in this area and you place them in an administrative position, it creates problem. All right. So it is good for them to have, you don't necessarily have to go and get a degree in public administration, but to some extent, they need to have idea. And that is the reason why they need to read books like my book, Introduction to Public Administration in Liberia. Because in this book, I developed, there are some questions that provoke people to take action. They need to know.
Oh, wow. And we'll get into that book so that I myself will have some idea about public administration. So as I administer the affairs of a focus on Liberia, I will know. So let's go into your dissertation and about decentralization. Just quickly, because before we get to our main thing.
Yeah, it's just a first answer to decentralization. Decentralization, you know, Liberia practice centralization. That's a form of government we practice in Liberia. And this centralization has contributed to, is one of the contributing factors to the 14 years of civil war we experienced in Liberia. So transitioning from centralization to decentralization, it is important for us to know.
You just said something big. You said centralization is a contributing factor to the 14-year civil war.
Yes, it's one of the contributing. There are several fighters, but centralization is one of the contributing fighters to the 14 years of civil war, because it has to do with service delivery. If you have a system, a public service system that is centralized, and you have other part of the country that are not receiving services, they are disenchanted. All right. So we talk about equitable distributions of natural resources, affordable service delivery. So if those things are centralized, people have to leave from the interior to come to Monrovia. Everything, Monrovia is not Liberia. All right, so centralization is one of the contributing factors. That is what in the Accra peace accord, it was also explained that what for peace agreement, there should be what decentralization. It was also proposed there. So if we are transitioning from centralization to decentralization, we need to know if decentralization will help to sustain the peace we have. Is it going to help to bring about inclusive development in Liberia? That is why I got into that study. And my study tells me that the finding shows that while yes, decentralization can contribute to the sustainability of peace and inclusive development. However, it cannot be used as a panacea for the sustainability of peace. To sustain the peace and to have inclusive development in Liberia, we need to go beyond decentralization. And there where my model come in. So the model that I created from the foundings has three concepts. You have the decentralization aspect. This has to do with the sequence and the design of decentralization. So the sequence and the designs of decentralization matters in the decentralization process. If you choose wrong sequence, if you choose wrong design of decentralization, you might not get the desired result. So it is important.
When you say sequence, you mean you do this one first, then this second, and then this third. So if you mix that,
it becomes a problem. Yes, a sequence, because decentralization is a package. You have the fiscal decentralization, you have political decentralization, and you have administrative decentralization. So it is a package. All right, some people will just do everything at once. So if you want to implement them, like currently in Liberia, we are at the stage of what? Deconcentration. In the literature, some scholars refer to it as administrative decentralization. All right, but some scholars say that's the weakest form of government, decentralized. And you see in Ellis administration, there was the establishment of county service centers. All right, in the various counties, trying to establish county service centers in all of the 15 political subdivisions of Liberia. That's deconcentration. But decentralization goes beyond that, because that seems to be the weakest form of decentralization. You need to look at the financial decentralization. You need to look at the political decentralization. So it is a package. So when we're talking about the sequence, we need to know. You need to know the sequence you are following. You need to know the design of decentralization. So the concept in my model, once I address decentralization, basically focusing on the sequence and the designs of decentralization. Then you have to look at conditions to consider. Like I said earlier, decentralization cannot be used as a panacea for the sustainability of peace and inclusive development, even though it helps, but you can't just use it like that. So what are some of those things that we need to consider in order to sustain the peace and to have inclusive development? So in my model, and I have conditions to consider. So you have the educational aspect, you have reconciliation, you have health, agriculture, there's so many things that I consider in that condition. But when we have the opportunity to reschedule a meeting on your platform, we can fully discuss the model. Another concept.
And before I leave that concept, you said it also can contribute or it help to achieve the pro-poor agenda. Pro-poor agenda is pretty new and we're still struggling with it. Just in few sentences, how you do that?
Yes, it helps to do. One of the pillars of the pro-poor agenda is power to the people.
Okay.
Right? That's one of the power to the people. Right. It also talk about economic empowerment. In my model, these are conditions to consider: economic and power to the people. And when you talk about power to the people, there is no better way to give power to the people in the absence of decentralization.
Right.
Decentralization is an aspect of giving power to the grassroots, making them to be part and parcels of the decision making. When they have the power, mainly devolutions, that's the strongest power. When they have the political power and the financial power. So you do that through fiscal decentralization. You do that through political decentralization. It happens in that way.
Good.
So when I'm talking about helping to achieve some of the proper agenda, that is what I'm talking about.
Okay, good. No, that's a good one. The power to the people is a strong one. So what's your
concept 3 in my model?
Because someone watching this show is a recent graduate. He got his PhD. But what has been your work experience in the area of public administration?
Oh, okay. Like I said, I have been in the private sector. I have been teaching. I serve as administrator for schools, vice principal for instruction at Sami M. Tukle School. All right, and I serve as educational coordinator for Satellite Elementary School, and I have been in the classroom at the university level.
Good.
So when it comes to that, I have not really gone into the public sector to work, but I have been in the private sector, specifically in the classroom.
Right, and you have also seen firsthand, because you live in Liberia and see how you see the power dynamics. You reference.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to your books. You wrote 2 books.
Yeah. Before I go to the book, the third concept that make up the model is leadership. You cannot decentralize.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, you cannot even if you have a decentralization and there is problem with leadership, it is a problem. So we need to look at leadership quality. So you can have the best decentralization. If you have a very bad leader, it's going to be a problem. So these 3 concepts make up the model, and we can discuss that. Then let's go to the book, you said.
No, before you said something, and I'm going to push you on that. When you say bad leader, who is a bad leader? When you say a bad leader, what are you talking about?
I said the model that I developed have 3 concepts: the sequence and designs of decentralization, concept 2, conditions to consider, and concept 3, leadership quality. I'm just saying that we need leaders that have the basic qualities to achieve sustainable peace and development in Liberia.
Like
so
what?
I'm saying that if you decentralize and you have bad leaders in the local and the national, it creates problem. You won't get your work. So you need qualities that will help to create good leaders. And those qualities are in the model. So when we come to the platform next time, we can discuss those qualities.
Right. No, because you mentioned bad leaders and we always complain of leadership. So I wanted you to pin me a picture of a bad leader so I can have something to take home. When a leader is a bad leader,
visionless leader is a bad leader. I say a visionless leader is a bad leader.
Okay.
A leader who does not. Yeah, but like I said, when we come to the model, the day I'm invited to your platform to discuss the model, we can discuss that because there are so many qualities listed there.
Okay, good. No, I have spoken to maybe 2 or 3 groups that are really big on decentralization. So that's what my interest is. But let's go to the books. You've written 2 books. The first one is the public administration book.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk about what it's all about. What sparked? Yeah, public. Okay, sure. Let our viewers see that. Okay, introduction to public administration in Liberia. You are saying specifically Liberia.
Yeah, specifically Liberia, but it does not mean that other concepts are not there. In this book, you will know public administration in general. You will know what is, because I discussed the concept, the nature, and the scope of public administration and the developments of public administration globally. But then we narrow it to Liberia, because if we are to understand public administration in Liberia, we need to first understand it from the global perspective. Then now you cannot, that is localization. You look at it from the global level and then you localize it, all right? That is the reason why I said, but 50 or 60% of this book materials is based on what global, and then 40% is basically focused on Liberia. So we will want to know how public administration became an academic discipline in Liberia. Did public administration struggle to survive as a separate discipline in Liberia, like it did in the United States of America? So how is it like? So we need to know that If you want, you can get this book. And we also, the book also talks about some of the reforms in Liberia. All right, you can get it in this book. It is interesting. Yeah. It's a recommended reading. Even some of my colleagues who for doctoral students here that I graduated before them requested that they want to have copies of this book, because at the National College of Public Administration, NCPA, you have to do qualifying exam for 8 hours. You sit down and do 8 hours qualifying exam, and you cannot go out. You take your lunch with you, and then you do your test after 8 hours. Then to graduate, before you start your dissertation, you have to do comprehensive exam, and that is also another 8 hours. So they all are public administration related. So as somebody who have graduated, who sat and passed the qualifying exam, who sat and passed the comprehensive exam, and graduated from NCPA. So my friends believe that I may have developed some concepts that can help them pass the comprehensive exam and the qualifying exam. So when they ask me, I say yes, and some of them said they need copies of this book because it's a product of NCPA. So if this guy can bring a book, definitely it will be something that will help doctoral students to pass the comprehensive and the qualifying exam. I say yes, and that can be discussed from the scope, the concept, and the developmental observations in the fields of public administration. It can be a help to them.
Yeah, I too, I need a copy of that book. We'll discuss later on how we can get a copy.
Yeah.
And how others can get a copy. But let's go into that piece, because it's very important when a book is written specifically about Liberia. Because what happened is a lot of our books, like I was in 7th grade and I was memorizing the Declaration of Independence of America. So most of the time, even when they give examples of food that we eat, they talk about foods that are outside of the country. Sure. You know, so all those things. When I was doing accounting 0 level at the university, I couldn't understand mortgage, and I always give that example because I couldn't relate to it. So no matter if I say, is that rent? They say no. They say lease, they say no. But what is it? So nobody could. So really to have a book specific public administration about Liberia, I'm curious. What about Liberian public administration?
Because even in this book, Brother Dennis, even in the book, discuss the traditional administrative system of Liberia. All right, where we discuss traditional institutions. Those are public affairs. Remember from the definitions of public administrations and government, the affairs of the people. So you talk about the traditional bush schools. We discuss about these things. Should we be condemning our traditional bush school? Admissions into those traditional institutions is declining.
Right.
Admission is declining. Should we completely do away with the cultures and traditions of our people, which is also public administration? No, we shouldn't. But what we should do, is there a need to improve the system rather than doing away with those traditional bush schools? You can have it here because you have commissioners that will be going there in the very leeward area, in the local government area. And these people must have ideas about the traditional people, the cultures of the people, the traditional institutions.
So you are saying the Tanu, the Zo, the Dakmana, the Bodio, they are practicing public administration?
Of course. They are practicing public administration. Is the affairs of the people.
Right.
Now, how do people get educated? You know, those are traditional bush schools. They learn the customs and traditions of their people. They preserve the customs and traditions of people. You understand? The societal values. So there are so many values that are taught in those institutions. In the absence of the Western concept, which are discussed in the book, the Western public administration and the traditional public administration. And you will know in this book where the Western public administration came from and where the traditional concept of public administration came from. There you will know that in this book, we have subtopic like what prehistoric public administrations and historic public administration. So we will discuss, anyway, that is what the book is basically about, and you can learn about it. Let's go to the majors one, Save the State.
So ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. Our guest is Dr. Isaac Podah. He's written a book that is called Save the State Through Proposition 6, Trusting the Political and Bureaucratic System. Save the State. So that tells me that this is recent because we just had Save the State protest. So did that inform the title of the book, or what are you trying to do here?
Yes, it basically informed the title of the book. Because do you know why? When I went back to Liberia to collect my data, I was worried because of the June 7 protest that it might affect my data collection. And obviously it did. It affected my data collection, you know. So that I begin to look at it. It is not only that learning how to get in a degree, but we should be able to bring our ideas to reduce our ideas into paper. So that is the reason why this book came about, Save the State through Proposition 6. You see, this is the idea.
Okay.
I am not against protest, but couples of months back, there was a call for the salvations of Liberia. And what was the instrument that was intended to save the state? It was protest. Like I said earlier, I'm not against protest. Protest is an instrument in the hands of the common people to call their political leaders to order.
Right.
When they are not satisfied with certain policy issues or certain actions of the government. So it is good, especially peaceful protest. So I'm not against protest. But again, I believe that protest cannot be used as an instrument for the salvations of the state. Because before Ellen's administration, there were protests. Before Doe administration, there were protests. In Ellen's administration, series of protests. Now, in Weir's administration, there were protests. And we should be expecting protests even after Weir's administration. Right. So if protests will save the state, protests would have saved the state long time ago.
Okay.
But protests cannot save the state, but it helps to bring the political leader to order. I do agree with that. So this is what I said, but something is fundamentally wrong with the system. To save the state, the reason why there are increase in protest is because the state, there is no trust in the system. Once there is no trust in the system, the people do what they are doing. So the book, the title says, Save the State Through Proposition 6. I believe when we try to save the state, if we can put trust, we can try to restore trust into the political system and the bureaucratic system, it will help with the salvations of the state. And how can we restore trust in the political system and the bureaucratic system? Is through the proposition that I put here.
All right.
So we have to go through the proposition.
Let me stop there. We'll go through the proposition, but I want to say you mentioned few things here. Save the state through Proposition 6, trusting the political and bureaucratic system.
Yeah.
So let me start by give me a brief description of the political and bureaucratic system. What's wrong with it? How does it look?
Yeah, it's frustrating. Our political system is seriously frustrating and disheartening. There is no, like I said, there is no trust in the political system. Okay. So the increase in protest should tell you that the people don't trust the system. And because of the lack of trust in the system, that is the reason why there is increase in protest. And it is not only in George Weah administration, because protests have been happening. So I'm not only focusing on George Weah administration. There is no trust in the political system. And not only the political system, sir, also the bureaucratic system. Because there is political controls of bureaucracy. The politicians manipulate the bureaucracy through political appointments. Mm-hmm. And these political appointees entered into the bureaucracy, politically blind, influenced by party politics. All right, and these people affect the bureaucracy, as we are going to discuss in the book. So the system has no trust. And because of that, the system needs to be safe. So what prompted you to write? What prompted you actually to write this book? The reason is that we seem to miss the mark, and we think that protest is the only way out. That's the reason why I try to write this. Many people try to forget about what really happened. We know the problem, but we don't know the solution. Okay. Our major problems is our politicians. And that is why I try to bring this thing so that we can argue. You may disagree with me with some of the propositions that I mentioned in this book, but I believe we can argue on these things rather than talking about reducing the presidential tenure from 6 to 4, from 6 to 5, and senator from 9 to 6, and what have you. What is the benefit of reducing it? For me, it makes no sense. Because it's like you are only telling the politician that you have a limited time to corrupt. Oh, wow. So we have to look at the proposition. Right. Before we look at the proposition, you talk about contaminants, because you describe the
the political and bureaucratic system, and you say there are things that contaminate this system.
Yes.
So let's discuss briefly those contaminants before we go into the propositions.
Yes. Contaminants. Contaminants within the bureaucratic system. Contaminant number one, what is contaminating our system? Political divisiveness.
Yeah.
Now, currently, Liberia faces two divisiveness. You have national political divisiveness and sub-national political divisiveness. And the national political divisiveness is the cause of presidential ballot box democracy. And you have the sub-national political divisiveness, which is the cause of what legislative ballot box democracy. Okay, so this division, people are divided in the county. When it comes
voting for president is
I'm coming to
ballot box. Okay.
Yeah, voting for presidential ballot box democracy, and legislative ballot box democracy. Okay. So that brings about sub-national divisiveness. The senators and the representative goes to the district and divide the people in the county, in the district. They create stories about their opponents, their oppositions, you understand? Lie, they fabricate stories. And then our people accept the hate messages and live with it. So in the county, in the district, our people are divided. So that is what I refer to as sub-national political divisiveness. And the senators are responsible for that. The representatives are responsible for the sub-national political divisiveness. The national political divisiveness is what presidents, those who are contesting for the presidency, they divide the nation. Currently, if you are for, you are called stupidation. If you support the ruling party, they call you stupid. If you are against the ruling party, they call you what? Enemies of the state. So we are divided, and these things are affecting us. But I try to compare the national political divisiveness and sub-national political divisiveness. Now, if you do the comparison, you will note that the national political divisiveness has created more harm to Liberia than sub-national political divisiveness. At the national level, we are divided. This is what happened, like I said earlier, enemy and stupid, because you are for and against. Let us look at our history. The elections of 1927 between C.D.B. King and Thomas J.R. Faulkner is a clear example that nearly caused Liberia to lose its sovereignty. That was not a legislative ballot box democracy. It was presidential ballot box democracy. And democracy did not exist at that time. Let us look at 1951 election between D2 and Totman. What is happening today happens before. Tuwe was harassed. His partisans were harassed. And Tuwe had to flee and go to Sheridan to secure his life. That was not legislative ballot box democracy. It was presidential ballot box democracy. Let us look at 1985 election, all right, where LPP and UPP were bound. Even the election that contributed towards the 14 years of civil war. So if you look at the histories of Liberia, you will realize that national political divisiveness has affected us more than legislative ballot box democracy. All right. So that's contaminant number one. And contaminant number two is unguided political appointment. Unguided political appointment. In our country, political appointment is primarily based on what loyalty to party. It is not based on competency and experience. So if I'm able to argue on social media, if I'm able to go to the party headquarters and blow a campaign slogan, or if I'm rich, a businessman, I'm able to finance a campaign, automatically I'm qualified to be for political appointment position. So unguided political appointment is also contaminating our system. How does that happen? These political appointees who are inexperienced and incompetent, all right, that maneuver through the Senate to receive confirmation, when they are entering the bureaucracy, because we talk about bureaucratic leadership, as ministers and directors and assistant ministers, you are in a bureaucratic leadership. So if you have an incompetent and inexperienced person occupying the bureaucracy, the leadership position in the bureaucracy, the professionals and the technocrats becomes what affected.
Yeah.
Those people create positions that are not necessary within the bureaucracy. That is helping to block the payroll. The bureaucracy is bloated. You overcrowd the bureaucracy because of the political appointees. They enter and create position anyhow because they need to put people in position, their friends and relatives, and the payroll increases. It gets swelling up. Then the Liberian people are focusing on running. You know, to run the Liberian bureaucracy is even expensive than the services that are coming from the bureaucracy. So unguarded political appointment is one of the contributing factors. And a nation cannot develop in the absence of the bureaucracy. Because you're talking about bureaucracy, that's the administrative machinery. It is there to translate government policy into practical reality. So if you have a mess up, an inefficient and ineffective bureaucratic system, you're going nowhere. So unguarded political appointment is contributing because professionals and technocrats in the bureaucracy become disappointed.
So when you say
To
unguided,
work at the will and pleasures of an incompetent and inexperienced political leader.
So when you say unguided, what should guide that appointment?
Now, when I use the word unguarded, it is not following the referral procedure. People in the Senate, sometimes you receive envelope with, I discussed something about political brown envelope. We will come to that. But appointment is based on what? Because this guy is from a party and he has been appointed by the president, and I'm part of the ruling party, so I have to confirm him. I told you that it is based on what? Your argument. If you are strong in arguing for your candidate, if you are able to go on the radio and defend your candidate, automatically you are qualified for appointed position. And those things, it shouldn't be like that.
When you say go bands, we not come with fire. Is there any other contaminant?
Yes, contaminant number 2, campaign financing.
Okay.
Campaign financing. This is affecting, is contributing to what? Depleting the national covert. I ask the questions in this book, questions that beg for answer. If it is true that President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf broke away from Joseph Boakai and supported George Weah, as people claim, financially, then the question is, where did Ellen get the money from?
Okay.
That cannot be her money. It should be the Liberian people's money. Where did Mel June get the money from? It's a question to ask in this book. It cannot be his personal money, but the Liberian people's money. Where do you think political parties get the money from to finance the campaign of parties' cat carriers? People who are running on the political party ticket, the winning party ticket. Where do the party get the money from to sponsor their candidates? Is it their money? It should be the Liberian people's money. Now, all those money that they are using to run campaign, and we have our health system, we have our educational system, all right? So if we take those money and put it in the health system, what's going to happen? It will help to improve the system. Yes. So campaign financing is one of the contributing factors to depleting our coffers. It's affecting us. That's misappropriation of public funds.
Right. So
campaign financing is harming us. The Liberian people should know where the politicians get the money from to run campaign for re-elections. And then another thing is businessmen who try to finance political party. What is his mind? What is his thinking? Because businessmen invest in an area where he can reap the dividends of his investment.
Right.
So the idea is state capture. So as business people are investing into politics, it tells you that the political industry is a profit-making industry. That is the reason why the businessmen are investing their resources into politics. So the concept is state capture. That's contaminant. Another contaminant is political brown envelope. Political brown envelope. This is money that circulates from the leadership of the 3 branches of government. You talk about the executive, the judiciary, and the legislative.
Does the color of the envelope matter?
Well, the color of the envelope does not really matter. Okay, but you know, it's a journalistic term, brown envelope.
Okay.
Yeah. It would have said, maybe we could say political red envelope anyway, but it's a journalistic term.
Okay.
It's a journalistic term, brown envelope journalism, brown envelope journalism. So I try to look at it, then I attach the word political brown envelope. All right. Usually we don't have red envelopes. We usually have brown envelopes and white envelopes,
Okay.
But it doesn't matter. The color doesn't matter.
Okay.
All right. So political brown envelopes, money that flows between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislative. That is corruption at the highest level. It is affecting us. Should the legislators receive bribed? The concept is to compromise on policy. So it is affecting us. And not only in this government, but other areas.
Right.
Few months back, people were saying, oh, those guys receive money to remove Cabinet Janet.
Yeah.
If it is true, then it is part of the political brown envelope that I'm discussing in this book. And I discuss about that in this book also, political brown envelope. Another contaminant is a small thing in the Liberian bureaucracy. Now, what do we mean by small thing? In Liberia, this usually happens at the street level. We talk about street level bureaucracy. Now, the frontliners. In the classroom, the teacher will intentionally make tests difficult. All right, because he wants something like cold water money. We call it cold water money. The police farming small thing. So small thing, when you go to the ministry, before you get document, they want you to give something.
Small thing.
So small thing in the Liberian bureaucracy is affecting service delivery. So those are the contaminants. In summary, national political divisiveness is contaminating us. Campaign financing, the mannerism involved in raising money to finance campaign is affecting us. Unguarded political appointments is affecting us, is contaminating the system. And political brown envelope is contaminating the system. Small thing, the issues of small thing in our street level bureaucracy is affecting us. So those are some of the contaminants that we need to look at.
Okay. So anytime something is contaminated, to me, it's beyond repair. When my milk is contaminated, we can't even drink it again. So do you have some prognosis to fixing this contaminant? I think you have Proposition 6.
Yeah.
So how do we fix this contamination? For instance, the unguided political appointment. How do we fix that? The small thing mentality.
One of the propositions that I mentioned here first is to do away with presidential ballot box democracy.
How many propositions do you have?
It is more than we have sub propositions. I have 6 major propositions.
Oh, 6 major ones.
This book, 6 major propositions, but there are sub propositions. So it's just a title, Proposition 6, but there are 6 major propositions in this book. All right. So, like I said, Proposition 1 is to do away with presidential ballot box democracy because it's affecting us. It has not contributed significantly to Liberia, but it has created a problem for us, divisions and what have you. And you ask me, then what should, and continue with legislative ballot box democracy? Because in my expose first, I told you that if you look at the comparison between presidential ballot box democracy and legislative ballot box democracy, presidential ballot box democracy has affected Liberia more than legislative ballot box democracy. So I said in this manner, we should do away with presidential ballot box democracy.
In other words, we should stop presidential elections.
Yeah, do away with presidential election. It is creating too much trouble and make use of public funds. Do away with presidential election. We should only have election for senators, representatives, and what have you. All right. Now you will ask me, what should we replace that with? It is in this book. It is in this book because of time. But it is in this book. How it is arranged. That is why you need to get it. Because if you have not read how it is structured and arranged in this book, you will want to disagree with me. So you might be interested to know what should be used to replace our presidential ballot box democracy. It is here in this book. Another proposition that I make mention about is the bounding the politicians, the president, the representatives, the senators from seeking medical and educational services outside the country and subject them to public institutions only. That's Proposition 1. This is the rationale. When it comes to politics, what is politics from a bureaucratic point of view? Politics is the authoritative allocations of values, deciding who gets what, when, where, and how, from a bureaucratic point of view. That's politics. So the president is the one that determines who should work within the health system of Liberia. He appoints the health ministers, the assistant ministers, the deputy ministers, and what have you. The House, they develop the budget that is used to run the health system and the educational system. So why will you tell me this is the person that should run the health system and this is the money that should be used to run the health system, that the services that are coming out there and you leave those services and you go outside of the country to seek medical services, then you are telling us that what the services you are providing is not correct, or are not correct. So my argument here is, since you are the one deciding who should work in the health system, because those health ministers, when they enter, they also have the power to change directors, medical directors, and what have you, deputy directors in those rural ministries. So you are the one appointing. You believe that the minister is competent and qualified enough to work in the health system. Right. Since you believe that, and those people believe also that the directors they are going to put into offices, and you believe that the money you are allocating for the health system is correct, it can serve the Liberian people. You are part of the government. You are part of the people. Why should you leave the service and go outside the country? I believe when we have a proposition that bound the president from seeking medical and educational services outside the country, the senator, they will do something
to make it right.
In the absence of that, we will continue to talk about the health system and the educational system. Once you are in active service, if you are elected for 5 years, that 5 years, you will be subjected to what public services, not even private services. Even of those politicians who don't have the means to go outside the country, when they are sick, they don't go to public hospitals. They go to what private hospitals. And then the common people are left. So it is good for them to come and experience what the common people are experiencing.
What they give us. In other words, you build your own house, but you don't want to live inside.
You don't want to live in your house. Something is wrong somewhere.
I got another example for
proposition.
You. I have somebody in my house. He's told to wash the dishes. I won't call his name before I get in trouble. He washes the dishes, but he doesn't use the dishes he washed. He goes for another clean dish. And when you ask him, he say, I don't trust my own dishes. So you are saying the president, vice president, all these people, they wash the cup, but they can't drink from inside. They go for another cup.
Yes. So how do you know what's going to happen? Another thing that will help. We cry. Every politician claims to have the country at heart. So this proposition is an instrument to help measure the degrees of love that the politician have at heart for Liberia. So if the politician is able to go in the absence of politics, if he outside politics, he's able to go outside the country when he's sick and carry his family outside of the country. So if he looks at that and say, yes, when I'm sick, I'm going to remain in Liberia. I will not go outside Liberia. I will remain in Liberia. Then we will say this guy have the country at heart. But in the absence of that, you don't have the country at heart. So bounding the president, the representative, and the senator from seeking medical and educational services outside of the country is a thermometer or an instrument that measures the degrees of love that the politicians have at heart. In the absence of that, they don't love us. Before Ellen administrations, CDC government said they were complaining about the weak health system, the weak educational system. Today, they are in power. And you have the opposition who were part of the ruling party at the time are again complaining about what the weak health system, the educational health system. So instead that our system is just there for politicians to use to get in power, you keep describing, telling us that the system is weak. We want solution. And the solution is to bind them because they are the one that decide who should work in the health system. They are the one that provides the budget. When we bound them, it will be a good thing for Liberia. That is the only way. You know, when we do that, they will be able to call the health minister when there is something wrong because their lives are in danger. That's proposition 2.
Right. So name it quickly because of time. We can. I know you keep looking at your time. You have somewhere to go. So how many minutes we got? 8 minutes.
We have. And then maybe we have about 10 more minutes. So we need to get called, but we will add it up a little bit. Let me just summarize it up. Okay. Another thing is to have appointed positions, other top positions, a licentiate position, where revocations of license will be tantamount to what banning them from seeking public services throughout their life.
Okay, so appointees should be licensed, and if you do wrong or out of the way, the license is revoked and you can work again.
Yeah, key political position. We can identify those key political positions, but appointed position and other top position, we should look at those positions and make those positions as a licentiate position. All right. It doesn't mean you have to go to school to get a specific license. So we can have an independent institution that will superintend the issuance and the revocations of that license. So take for instance, if Brother Dennis is a friend of Mr. Podah, who is a president, if you went and blow a campaign slogan, you argue for me. If you don't have the license that qualifies you, I cannot appoint you. Even if you have the license that qualifies you for political appointment, if I appoint you into position, then you have every year, that independent body every year will come to monitor and evaluate the performance of these people every year. And then if you misbehave or you decently perform in the bureaucracy, your license will be revoked. And when your license is revoked from you, you will never work in public service. So your owner hope become the private sector. Do you know what that does? It's also going to make people to do what is right. You are comparing them to do what is right because nobody wants to lose the opportunities of working in public service. We should start playing fun with the Liberian people. We should try to secure the bureaucracy from the hands of the politicians. They have the bureaucratic systems of Liberia is inefficient and ineffective only because it has been manipulated by these politicians, by the political appointees. So when we have these license issues, people will be forced because they don't want to lose that opportunity. And when you go in the private sector, it is your own hope. So you try to maintain, to do what is right. That's proposition 3.
This proposition have a lot of questions, but I'm reserving them so you can go through because if you say ban this person from leaving the country and seeking medical, that's their freedom, they may sue you. If you say revoke license or do this, they say, well, you got to go to court. So there are a whole lot of things involved.
Yes, it's a constitutional matter, meaning that we have to revisit the Constitution. To have this proposition, we have to revisit the Constitution. If it's a referendum matter, we have to go back there. So if you talk about human rights, some of my friends who have read my manuscript, so question them. But the issue here is, what about the right of the common people that have been violated? If you tell me it's your right to go outside, yes. What about the right of the people who cannot afford to go outside the country? Are you better than those people? You are using public funds. They are the employer. You are just an employee. It makes no sense that the employer is living in abject poverty while the employee is living a luxurious life. So we need to
go to proposition 3, 4, and 5.
Talk about the establishment of the World and Economic, fast track the establishment of the World and Economic Crime Court. Make corruption cases to be adjudicated in not less than 12 months. All right? Because sometimes we talk about corruption cases have been opened, but it takes more than a year for us to know. And people develop the mind now that, hey, they believe that there is no trust in the system. So the court system, the judiciary system should try to put mechanisms in place where corruption cases, when it is open, will be adjudicated in not less than 12 months so that we can know that, yeah, this corruption case has been opened. In not less than 12 months, it is going to be adjudicated. We finalize it. Another one is what? Let us make the health, agriculture, and educational services to receive the highest budget, to receive the highest allotment in our budget. If we do that, it's going to help because you cannot have a country where the health system is poor, the educational system is poor, and the agricultural system is poor. You expect yourself to develop. I'm not saying that it should be continuously, but for a considerable amount of time by law, let us say this institution will be receiving the highest in our budget. It shouldn't be left at the will and pleasures of those who are crafting the budget. Basically, that is it. However, there are other propositions or solutions that might be good that are not mentioned in this book. I'm just saying this book is just a compendious and parsimonial description. All right? So we can argue and look at these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me bring in, because the time is so short, let me bring in 2 callers, and then we'll be calling it a day. Our first caller here is from West Norristown, Pennsylvania. There is a caller here from Pennsylvania, 267 area code. You are live. Your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Lucien Varney, calling from Abu Dhabi.
Lucien, you said?
Lucien Varney, yeah, calling from Upper
Lucien
Bay.
Vanny, you are live. Quickly, our time is almost out.
Yeah, thank you so much for the show, people. And I want to say thank you to our honorable guest, Mr. Isaac. I want to say thank you for his brilliant ideas. But one thing I just want to buttress on pertaining to some of his expose that he just put out here about small thing with all these different viewpoints that he was making. Everything is very logical. But our country, Liberia, today, seeing better, it been on the default from the from the beginning of our country. Liberia has been in a form where it was funded without no good accuracy information, even for us as people. And based on this idea, today our country has been like that for decades with all the logical, well educated or leaders we've been having.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, but I'll give you a chance because you're talking. So
No, go ahead.
yeah. So like I was saying, but Mr. Isaac is right because our country there's no person in Liberia that you think will be able to do anything transparently. That's one of the problems we have in our country. Even you go in the market, everybody wants small things. So just how I say.
Thank you. Let me just get 1 minute each because this man he has another appointment that he needs to go to.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Let me bring in
Okay.
Michael Patmo. Michael, you have 30 seconds.
All right, thank you very much. So,
Right.
I listened to your guest. I haven't read the book, so I can't speak to his first preposition. But the second and third, which I listened to, his ideas are good, but he it needs some refining. And so let me just state this. So, like the second one, where he talked about government officials being bound to not leaving the country. Legally, you can't hold anybody from seeking healthcare or education, especially if that person can pay for it with their personal funds. Most likely, what you could do is, since those people have government healthcare, you can say government will not pay for any healthcare or education that you acquire outside of the country. To Proposition 3, where he talked about licensure, you don't really, I mean, it would be unconstitutional to take away somebody's license like that. But what you could do is you could have like a criteria and say, in order for you to hold government office, you should not have committed a felony. And that would take in the legal system of it. So I just wanted to make those 2 points. But I do want to commend the brother for thinking about the issues, and trying to find some solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. My last caller is Boyman Kone. Boyman, you're live. Uh-oh. Boyman 2 went off. All right, so you heard those? Dr. Podah, respond to the question and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think the other guy was commenting, and the other guy, they are just comments, not directly questions. But like I said, let us look at the common people. Usually we will say it's unconstitutional, it's illegal for you to ban them. This is my point. And you give clear example that the child is washing the dishes in the house, but when you ask him when he wants to eat, he go for different dishes. So what is going on? So we cannot face our health system and educational system when the people in the country are going outside of the country to seek medical and educational services outside of the country. I believe this is a time. Let us look at the common people, thousands of people who cannot afford to even go to private hospitals. That is my point. So it is a constitutional matter. That is why we are saying we have to discuss these things. We have to debate them. And the other caller said it means refinement. Yes, some of these propositions, we might not just accept all of them. We need to debate it, argue it. Where we think there is need for amendment, we can look at that. But I think this is what we need to do. The Liberian people should start looking at this rather than the proposition they have over there for referendum.
There's another can of one you want to open. All right.
Obviously, we should be looking at this. In fact, now when the senators are going over it, let them ask them. You talk about licentiate positions. You know, those guys are working at the will and pleasures of the president. Even if the guy is definitely performing and maltreating people in the ministries and the agency, they have nothing to do because they believe they are enjoying the pleasures of the president. So they will continue to do what is wrong, increasing the salaries of their boyfriends and girlfriends, creating positions unnecessarily. So there should be a law, like when you have that independent body that their license have been revoked and banning them from seeking public services throughout their life. Do you know what that will do? Everybody will be afraid. So it's not that our politicians and our political appointees don't know what is right, but the environment is not created for them to do the right thing. So we should compare them to do the right thing. So this proposition is intended to compare the politicians and their political appointees to do what is right. And when these people start doing what is right, there will be some levels of trust in the system. And then the state can be saved through that.
Thank you. Few comments before we close. Klubosomo Johnson Brosses, some school of thought also argue that decentralization may widen regional disparities in social spending if local governments are made responsible for their funding and delivery. What's your advice to the government of Liberia in that regard?
Every form of government has the negative side and the positive sides of it. Decentralization, like I said earlier, cannot only be used as a panacea for the development and for sustainability of peace and inclusive development, but it is good because it helps to deliver services. It's an effective way. All right?
Then Dave just said, what aspect of public administration do our political parties and many Liberian institutions continue to miss for which they are so ineffective?
Values, political values. In this book, I measure core values within in public administration. So in this book, I discuss democracy. What is democracy? And I try to explain what really democracy is all about. And this is what I'm just saying. You say our politicians, this is what it means. You see, in democracy, this is what democracy is about. By the people, for the people, and of the people. If you say by the people, you should be with them. By the people is about caregiving. It's like you have a little child and looking after that child to make sure that the child should not go into a danger zone. By the people is about caregiving, taking care of the people. But that is what lacking. The politicians, they only look after themselves. They care for their and their immediate relative, their crony. That is what lacking. By the people, they should be. By the people.
Jimmy Eastman said constitutional reforms require political will, which our politicians don't have. They do not support anything that would take away their luxuries. How do we get around? He's
right. He's right. But they should understand what my brother needs to understand is that who employ the politician? It is the Liberian people.
Yeah.
All right. So this is what I say. You have the power. They are not the ones. So you have the problem. If you allowed your employer to live, your employee to live luxurious life, and you continue to live in abject poverty, then something must be fundamentally wrong with you. And this is what I'm saying, that we should follow some of these propositions. They are coming again. The senators are coming again. So what should we be telling them? We should force them
to do
it. Let us bound them.
Someone asked, where have those propositions, where have they been tested? That you want them to...
They have not been tested anywhere. You don't necessarily have to test anything. Look at democracy, the democracy that have been tested in other countries. It is working in other countries. They are developed, but Liberia still have democracy. What is going on there? We are still lacking behind. So the issue is not about where it has been tested. That is why theories that have been formulated, when you see scholars coming up with their theory, they don't look at where the theory have been tested before they come up with their theory. You look at your problems and you develop concepts that you think will be a help to your problem. So it does not necessarily mean that these propositions have to be tested other places before you accept it. So people develop theories and concepts, not because it has been applied or tested other places. As the theories and concepts are developed, people apply them to see. So this is why I'm saying that these propositions should be tested in Liberia. Let us try to see. If it cannot work, after some time, we can go back to the old system.
All right. So how can we get a copy of this book? I think this is just part one. We will continue the discussion due to time. How do we get copies?
For now, it is not on Amazon. I will try to make an arrangement for that. It just got published in not less than a week, and I will be going back to Liberia. So those who are in Liberia that I'll be going back there so they can get a copies of this book. So my Facebook page, you have it. You can contact me on my face as a Podah. You get it, and you get inbox me your number, your contact number, and I can give you a copies of this book. And at Advantage University, when you go to the Advantage University, you can get a copies of this book at Advantage University. So some will be there. You can also get some at Radio Avant. I will try to leave it there, at Radio Avant. Okay, because that is an old road. You can easily get it there. I will try to leave copy there. So when you go to Radio Avant and ask for Dr. Podah, as a Podah from Satellite SDA Church, they will be able to get me. Or you can get to my inbox and give me your contact number. When I can't get to Liberia, I can see how to give you a copy.
Great. Someone said here, I'm willing to help arrange with Amazon. So you got an offer here. Go through the comments and we can connect with that person.
Wow. How can I get in contact with him?
Okay. You don't know whether that's him or her, so don't.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. The comment is there. Right. We'll try to you go through the comment and we can arrange or contact the person. So all this big talk that you talk, are you not going to get in trouble?
I know I might get in trouble.
Okay.
That's true. I know that people will criticize me. They will do all kinds of things. I know that already. But I don't care. We're talking about the salvations of the state.
Okay.
We cannot keep changing politicians through elections when our system cannot be better. We need to change the status quo.
Let's get your
In
final
this book,
thoughts.
I mentioned that who should respond to the change, a call to change. Who should respond to the change? They should build our house, but they will not want to. But the common people must stand up.
Thank you so much. And when you get to Liberia, please get in contact. Let's keep in touch so that we can bring you back, because we didn't ask the question we wanted to ask concerning your proposition. We want to go into detail, in depth of those propositions. Let's test them right here on Focus on Liberia, even before you take them to Liberia. Let me get your final thoughts before we close the broadcast. Let's get your final statements, your final thoughts before we close.
Well, I just want to say thank you ever so much. Fellow Liberians, it's important for us to stand up and begin to think outside the box. Most of the propositions our politicians are bringing to us cannot solve our problems. Reducing the presidency from 6 years to 5 years or 4 years cannot do anything good for us. They will only tell us that, oh, you are telling them to hurry up and corrupt. You are only telling the senator, hurry up and receive your brown envelope. Instead of receiving the brown envelope for 7 years or 9 years, you are going to receive your brown envelope for 6 years. We should try to look at some of these propositions. When they are coming, those of them that have listened to me should try to question our senator. What do you think about banning you? These are the questions we should be asking them. Since you are the one that confirmed the minister, you are the one that approved the budget, why do you think when your brothers and sisters are sick, they go outside of the country? So we want to ban you people and subject you people to public services. The services you are providing for us, we want you to have a taste of the services you are providing for us. What do you say about that? We should try to question them on these things.
Well, thank you so much for the time. We want to thank our viewers also who participated. We are sorry that we are out of time, but Dr. Isaac Podah will be coming back, and so we can continue the discussion and even go into the public administration book. Now he got the education, he got a doctorate. He's going to test those theories when he gets back to Liberia, when he gets on the ground, whether they're going to stand the test of time. He's going to come back here and on Focus on Liberia, if he will be eating his own words or if you're going to be having a happy dance. Thank you, Dr. Podah, for agreeing to be here on Focus on Liberia. Here at the show, we elevate, we educate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, from all of us here at Focus on Liberia, I want to say thank you so much. I want to thank our viewers, and we say good night and God bless you. We don't leave you until we say we are all Liberians. That's the song we like to leave with the people, reminding all of us that whether we don't implement the proposition or not, whether we get small thing or no small thing, we are all Liberians. And let's fight to make our country that glorious land of liberty. On behalf of Focus on Liberia, my name is Dennis Johnson. Good night and God bless you.
Thank you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people.
So I will get back to you, sir. For those people that want to help me for Amazon.